Canon Films, the home of high-powered, high-voltage motion picture entertainment.
Hi, I'm Austin Trunick, author of the Canon Film Guide. And you're listening to Play That Rock and Roll with Joe K.
We're Canon Films, and we're dynamite.
Was Missing in Action, the 1 and 2, those were the first movies they made with him?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that began their long, very prolific relationship with Chuck Norris.
Yes, and so I believe I have a misunderstanding of how those movies came to be. So I'm going to pitch this to you to help explain this to me. My understanding of Missing in Action, the first two, is that James Cameron had a script for a sequel to First Blood in 1983, and they filmed Rambo First Blood Part 2 in 84, and they put it out in 85. So the first Missing in Action came out in 84. So my assumption all this time was the guys at Canon either saw the script or caught wind that there was a big budget Rambo Vietnam, rescuing POWs movie, and they rushed, like that documentary, they rushed to beat the big studio to the punch with their version of Stallone, Chuck. Is that accurate, or what am I mixing up here?
That's a story that's been repeated often, that's never held water for me. There was a book that came out in the early 80s called Mission MIA by J.C. Pollock. And it was a bestseller. It was a big deal at the time. It made the news a lot. And I know that Chuck Norris had read that book as he wanted to make something. He had lost a brother in Vietnam. He wanted to make a Vietnam movie, and he had read that book and given it to James Bruner, who wrote Missing in Action, and just asked him to do something along those lines. And the premise was a group of guys going back to Vietnam to save POWs who have been trapped there all through the 80s.
Right.
And as Hollywood often does, I think it's just, this book was a hit, and a lot of people heard about it. And I think either James Cameron or Sylvester Stallone himself probably also were aware of it and read it, and that inspired their Rambo. The movie Uncommon Valor, which actually came out in 83, has the same premise with Gene Hackman.
Right.
So I think it's just one of those cases where three different people independently ripping off the same book rather than each other.
And all feeding into like one of the wildest and fully debunked conspiracy theories of the 80s, right? There was absolutely no accounts of POWs held in Vietnam after the war. That to me is such an interesting fantasy that a lot of people, I think because they saw these movies, thought must have been like ironclad for real. Yeah. So can you tell the story of the mix-up or the switch-up of Missing in Action 2 being filmed first, and then the one that was released first being filmed second, and how they got swapped?
Sure. Well, yeah, so Missing in Action, the script, for what we actually got as Missing in Action, Chuck Norris had been developing it with James Bruner, the screenwriter, and they'd been shopping around. At that point, Chuck Norris was in martial arts movies, mostly doing sort of martial arts kick punching, a lot of roundhouse kicks, which is his trademark move.
Of course.
But he wanted to do something that would sort of move him away. There could still be punches and kicks in it, but he wanted to get more into gun action. He wanted to be a more straightforward action hero star, not just the martial artist. He was also in his mid-40s at that point. Yeah. So he was needing to lower the amount of physical stuff he was doing in the films. So, as I mentioned, he gave the J.C. Pollock book to James Bruner, and he wanted to do something in Vietnam. And he wrote basically what is Missing in Action. They shopped it for years, a bunch of places. Nothing came of it. Till finally, Chuck got called into Canon. Canon wanted to work with him. And they wanted to do Missing in Action with him in it. And so he assumed it was the script that he'd been shopping. Chuck goes into the meeting, and it turns out Menachem wants to make Missing in Action, but not the script that Chuck had sent. It was another script that Canon got called Missing in Action. And so he has to make this very sad call to James Brunner saying, hey, guess what? I'm going to make Missing in Action at Canon. They want to do this deal. The problem is it's not your Missing in Action. It's not the one you wrote. So, because he still wanted to do it. It was still a Vietnam movie. It was Missing in Action 2. So that movie was made, shot. Most of it is Chuck being tortured in a POW camp and then breaking free at the end, killing everyone in Vietnam and saving his buddies.
Chuck Norris is a prisoner they couldn't break, and a soldier they couldn't hold.
Look, our country has forgotten about us, and we have to do anything we can to survive.
There's one chance for escape.
That's our way out.
He's breaking out and fighting back. An American hero. His story continues.
This is for me.
Chuck Norris, Missing in Action 2, The Beginning.
As they were finishing that up, they were having such a good time and it was going so well that Chuck called up James Brunner and he said, hey, we want to do a second Missing in Action movie. While we have Chuck here, we want to do a sequel back to back. Can you just retool your script a bit so the characters name match, come back, and we'll make Missing in Action 2. So he did that. And that was what we ultimately got as Missing in Action 1. So when Canon came to Warner Brothers had a first look option to distribute their stuff. They showed them Missing in Action, what we have as Missing Action 2. And Warner Brothers said, no thanks. No, it's not very good. It's not the thing we want. So they canceled the deal. Canon finished up the Missing in Action, what they thought would be their sequel, and realized, holy moly, this is so much better than than the first movie. Let's release that first. And so they put out Missing in Action because all you had to know is that he had been in a POW camp. Mm. That's all you really need to know about Braddock when you first see the movie. And it's in that movie, he's very much your 80s action hero. He's got the one-liners. He's got guns. He's got his martial arts.
James Braddock has returned. To uncover the truth and free the soldiers.
We're going home?
Missing in Action.
Damn right.
James Braddock declares war. The war isn't over until the last man comes home. America had no more heroes. Until now. Chuck Norris, Missing in Action.
And it was a huge hit. It was one of Canon's biggest box office hits that they had in the whole time. And they needed a sequel for that. So they just got the original movie they shot, gave it the very confusing title Missing in Action 2, The Beginning, made it a prequel, and put it out a few months later.
A matter of months, which is crazy.
Yeah.
So the first two might not be Stallone ripoffs, but one thing that the Missing in Action series absolutely does rip off the Rambo series is the titling of the third one, Braddock, Missing in Action 3. Are there any other movies ever that have hero's last name : the title?
No. No, those two share a very, very specific naming convention.
James Braddock is fighting for everyone who can't fight back. Chuck Norris. Braddock, missing in action 3. No man, no law, no war can stop him. Sylvester Stallone is back as Rambo. First Blood, Part 2.
How do you like the Missing in Action trilogy? Was that one you watched when you were younger, or how does it rank in the Chuck?
Yeah, I enjoy Missing in Action. I think 3 is a ton of fun.
Yeah.
1 and 3 are definitely my favorites. 2 is, for me, the beginning, when all the stuff where it's just him getting tortured in the POW camp and humiliated and where they're trying to force him to twist his words is kind of a slog.
Yeah.
It gets good at the end when it's just him kicking ass for the last 30 minutes. But yeah, Missing in Action 3 is 1 and 3 are both like really fun 80s style action movies. Great one-liners, and the whole last act of Braddock is just nonstop insane action. So it's just that is worth worth the price of admission alone.
Oh yeah, one of my favorite shirts. I don't get to wear it too often, but I bought it in high school and still got
Step
it.
on toes, Little John. Step on necks.
Yes.
Braddock, I'm warning you. Don't step on any toes.
I don't step on toes, Little John. I step on necks.
I can see the love of freedom shining in your eyes. I can see the love of freedom in your eyes.
Best of
You made
luck.
me feel like a rock star right there. That was great.
Hell yeah, man.